not see any bits and bytes like Matt's talk just the last hour. So if you're here for that, I'm afraid you're going to be disappointed. So what I do want to talk about, though, today is hunting hackers, right? So if you were in Paul or Tim or some of these other awesome talks earlier, you may have picked up there's an ongoing theme, right? We've been doing, we being IT security folks, IT security for a long time. Personally, I'm at about 17 years, right? And yet, if we look at the headlines, if we look at what's going on, it's worse today than it was last year and the year before. So, what the heck, right? What in the world are we doing wrong? If there's anybody here that doesn't have firewall, antivirus, or all of these other great solutions, and not that those aren't needed, right? Not that those aren't valuable tools, but clearly that's not solving it, despite what all the vendors in the vendor hall will tell you. You're not picking on them, right? So what I'm going to talk about is, I'm not going to go real deep, but I want to focus on an area that I think we don't focus on enough, and that's looking at literally what is it the bad guys are doing. Okay? So what I'm going to do for the meat of our talk today is I've got some logs that we pulled from real hacks. Okay? So know these, those of you know I work for GE. These are not GE boxes. All right? These are from outside entities. They have been anonymized to protect the not so innocent, as the case may be. But they're real, right? So these are literally taken from a live C2 server that were used literally against a company that had no idea, as you'll see in the logs, that they were pwned and their data all just walked right out the door, right? So that's kind of what we're going to focus on. And then try and apply a little bit. I don't have all the answers, right? I don't think anybody's got all the answers. Despite what they say, you've got all the answers. All right. See him afterwards. He's got all the answers. He's with Terramark, so they got all the answers for us. But we don't have the answers, right? But what these are is my thoughts. Now, I want to emphasize a couple things. One, I'm really fortunate because I have the advantage to work with a really, really gifted team of other folks. And so there's a bunch of folks from GE CERT and the other teams that I'm here. So what you're going to see, please don't attribute that all as my work, okay? I'm sharing my opinions in here, but this is based off a lot of people's work. And the reason I mention that is twofold. Is one, I want to make sure I don't take credit for other people's work. But secondly, and I think just as importantly, this is not a solo sport anymore. This is a team sport. So if you think that you're going to be able to do IT security by yourself, and I know you may work for a little company and you may have 50 and you're the security / network manager / on and on and on, right? Fine, but go hook up with the West Michigan ISSA or all the other great resources right here that you can swap intel. Because the bulk of what I get to do, right, is I get paid to understand what the bad guys are doing, right? Which is kind of cool, right? You can't know too much about what the bad guys do. It's not possible. Because even if I somehow manage to be 100% expert on bad guy number X, right, or group actor X, right, 2 weeks from now, they've moved on and they've changed, right? So if I do like a lot of us do, and I go in and I go, all right, I got it, right? IT security, I gotta have good firewall rules, I gotta put the, snort, bleeding edge rules in my sensor, I'm good. And it isn't gonna work, right? So let's talk a little bit about that, right? So if you're here in this room, I hope you understand, and I don't have to convince you about all this stuff, right? So let's instead focus on, if I can get my PowerPoint to work here, let's focus on a little more meat. So can folks see this here? All right. So what we've got, and the date is valid, right? So these were pulled from a command and control server in July 18th, 10:42:53 Eastern time, in the case of that line that I'm highlighting there, right? So what are we looking at here? So now, again, I hope everybody isn't looking for super uber serious talk here, because if you did, you better go over to the management track next door, because that's not where we're going to get here. So we've got some stuff that I just want to kind kind of cherry pick some of the stuff here. So I threw in a few Mystery Science Theater 3000 style comments, right? So first we're seeing them, they're getting in, they run a task list to look for their stuff, right? Then they're downloading. What this is doing is they're downloading their backdoor, running command prompt, then they're doing some directory. Well, why in the world are they looking for .rars and .exes? Because he probably doesn't remember if he's already pwned this box and he's looking to see if his tools are here yet, right? So we move down. All right, nope, I don't see those. Okay, let's pull our tools. All right, so again, we download our tools. Oh, here's a bunch. Did you guys see GSEC dump? I'm pretty sure Tim mentioned GSEC dump in his talk earlier, right? All right, password cracker, some backdoors, NetView, some password listing stuff. All right, so we're doing NetView, right? Why in the world is a bad guy doing NetView? Because we all know as security professionals, if we want to map the network, we use Nmap, right? No, we don't need to use Nmap. We use a tool like NetView because why? The bad guys aren't like us. They're not looking at it from a perspective of defense. They're looking at it perspective of results. They don't care if their tool is sexy, right? I go in, I'm a geek, right? I like the sexy stuff. Oh, Nmap, I've used that for years. That's so mundane. That's boring. I want the cool shit. No, bad guys don't care about the cool shit, or at least this bad guy doesn't, right? This bad guy wants results, right? So he just runs NetView. NetView tells him where all of these connections are from the computer he's pwned so that he can find the good stuff. And we'll see some of that as we go along here, right? So again, this was straight. So Tim Maletic's talk earlier was awesome, right? He said they're using those NetBIOS null sessions. We've all known that about that since what? 90? 85? Geez, I don't know. Long, long time, right? Net group domain. Computers. All right, I just got a list of computers in the domain. Domain users. Oh, there's my list of users in the domain. Domain controllers. Geez, why would I want domain controllers? I don't know. So then we pull some passwords. Now this is pulling the local passwords on the box, right? So we pull that. You know, that damn antivirus. It's such a pain. So we turn that off. And then we start. Now I mentioned I have anonymized all this stuff, right? Because again, since these are real logs from a real box, I don't want, you know, the poor folks that got pwned on this to feel too bad. But I did leave a few things in here, right? So PC001-XP. I wonder what kind of box that is. Because the original name that was really in there before I substituted the PC001s had -XP in it. So I left that, right? Because that's a big freaking clue for the bad guys. Later on, you're going to see some that say -DC, right? Or you'll look at these logs and you'll see FR-, I wonder if that's in France. You know, so on and so forth. All of these things that we do to help us administer, we better be aware, not to say that you don't do them, right? I'm not saying that. But you need to be aware that that's a two-edged sword. It also tells the bad guys, when they're in there, what they can do and get around, right? So we do some more password dumping. So here we start moving around. So we pulled our passwords, we transfer them back, we run them through some rainbow tables, or maybe pass the hash. We'll see some more of that, or we'll see some of that in a little bit as well, right? But we start connecting to those other boxes. Because remember, we just got a list of boxes here. Now, notice, we started this up there at 1044, we're at 1102, right? Not been on the network a whole dang long time, right? So we're just in here, we're moving around, so we do our net use. Oh, I better install my backdoor, because I'm going to remember that NWSP agent that was downloaded right up front. Here we're installing that, because we're going to need to get back in later. And something that looks innocuous, but we see as one of the simplest and most common ways of moving around, is a good old @ command. So if you're not familiar with the @ command at your command prompt, go home, pop open your command prompt on your Windows box, and run @. So what @ does is allows you to run a task schedule, right? that works across the network. Okay, so I pulled my passwords. I've now got passwords for these 6 boxes that I know talk to my box because of the net view. I run the ad on those boxes. That runs my commands. What am I doing? I'm moving laterally through your network, right? And it's literally as simple as that, all right? So then we go down here. Oh, let's see who all is in the domain admins. Bunch more. We've seen this. One of the things I want to stress, and important thing to do with your Intel operations, even if you don't call yourself Intel, right? Whatever you want to call it, understanding the bad guy, look for little things. I don't know about you, but when I ring ping, I don't do a ping-n1, right? Ping, give me one, please. Right? It's like Red October, right? One ping, please. But you'll see that they use patterns, the bad guys use patterns just like we do. Why? They're lazy too, right? Remember, they've got a goal. They just want results, okay? So, ping 1. Yep, that box is up. All right, let's connect to that. Oh, that's a cool password. Oh, gee, I wonder what user that is. EPO Madnet. Yeah, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe the McAfee server. I don't know. Couldn't be that. Oh, and look at this. PW dump PC007-DC. Oh, there go the corporate jewels. We now know all of the systems out there. More stuff, more stuff. And again, notice what they're doing is they're just moving around. It's the same thing. On and on, net use, on and on. Oh, and here we're starting to look for some data, right? So look at the time, and then, let's see. Let's find some of that data. No, didn't find it yet. All right, I jumped down a little bit here. And kudos to this company, because I've seen way worse passwords. Oh, and here, let's raid the email system, because nobody ever puts anything good in their email. There's pass the hash. Don't need to bother cracking passwords. We can just pass the hash around. Oh, there goes the Exchange server. That never has anything good in it. Oh, and there, what's that? And so then we get down here, and what are they doing? Oh, they're compressing up the data they just stole. Let's file that out. Yes, bad guys can't type either. Oh, here, let's see. They're looking for MySQL servers. Either that or their backdoor is called MySQL in this case. Could be either. Oh, and here they're running a tool. I swear, it's like Tim Maltek's talk earlier was prescient, right? So here they're going for the SQL server, right? Got that. Oh, let's add a user onto that box. Yep, all good. Play around, we get some more stuff. Again, I don't want to overly bore you. Most of this is the same. Install, move around, install, move around. All right, so the last part I wanted to show you was this. So this was actually a little bit earlier on another box because they didn't come back a few. I didn't find the exfil logs for that one handy. So I had these that were real handy. Same stuff though, right? So here what we're seeing is they're doing a directory admin data information management system. Damn it, what's the matter there? Something's wrong. All right, let's try quotes. Oh wait, let's try spelling it. No, doesn't have 2 N's, doesn't have 2 R's. Eventually we get it, right? And they find the data they're looking for. We pull it together. We compress it up, right? And then we push it out. And when they compress it up, it's a WMV file. It's really a RAR file, but we just change the extension. Right? So what that is, what we just looked at, are real logs. We see this go on every day. Every day. And what do you think the chances are that whatever that company was, that those commands were all just running in, has a clue that that data just walked out the door? Probably not very good. And unfortunately, we see this sorts of activity against, all sorts of things, right? So military contractors, security firms, it doesn't matter, right? Because we've got this basic disconnect between going for the sexy, cool stuff. Oh, this web application firewall, it will solve all of our needs. Oh, let's go get a pen test. That'll find all the holes. Not that those aren't great things, right? But we as security professionals need to look beyond the tools. The tools are not going to solve it all for us. Your best tool is right here, right? And that's understanding what it is that they're doing so we can use it against them. So, I got a few thoughts on how we might go about that. Now, this may or may not help. The thing is, I can't give everybody here, right, go do this and all of your problems are solved. Because, of course, if it was that easy, we'd have solved it, right? The thing is, it's different from your network versus my networks versus everything, right? It's all got to be custom. And so until we, though, as professionals start moving beyond just looking at that, oh, we've got checkbox, 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 we're going to continue to get pwned. Do we really think these anonymous whack jobs are that skilled? They're not. Okay? They're going for low-hanging fruit, right? SQL injection and other crap that we know about. If we know about it, why haven't we fixed it, right? So, where do we begin? All right? Now, maybe this isn't what your network looks like. Every network I've ever worked with, every company I've ever called in to help, basically looked like this on a good day. So that's, of course, the problem, right? In the real world, we've got bosses who want priorities, and they want reports, and they want all this cool stuff, while the bad guys are walking out the door, right? So let's talk a little bit about how we go about, finding these guys, right? Moving beyond that basic antivirus, relying on all of that. Well, let's think about this. From the bad guys' perspective, they have needs too, right? They have to do and accomplish things just like you do, right? So if we're going hunting for them, let's turn some of that against them. So what are some of the things that they need to do? Well, they need to hide among our normal activity, right? They've got to somehow be in our networks in such a way we don't notice them. The easiest way to accomplish that is to hide amongst the noise, right? They've got to map our networks and systems. There is nothing that they can do that don't leave signs if we look in the right places, right? The trick is figuring out what those right places are. They've got to find and collect the data. They're not breaking in just for the grin of it. Now, okay, yeah, we've got the lulz idiots who are just breaking in for the lulz, right? Or maybe more correctly, the notoriety and the media attention, right? But they're looking for data. I mean, even the anti-sec folks are looking for data because they want to embarrass you. That's going to leave signs for us if we're looking for that, right? And then they got to get it out. So they're in our network, they got to get it back out. Now, unfortunately, that's usually the easiest part, all right? But, again, so these are some of the needs that they've got, right? They want to accomplish this. So perhaps, and this is just a suggestion, when you go back tonight or Monday or whenever it is you go back to the office, start looking at it from the perspective of how do you accomplish this in your environment. If you want to get in and hide amongst that normal activity, if you want to get in and do all of these, how would you accomplish that on your network, right? And start looking there. So a few ideas on this, right? That graphic didn't come out very well. One, most of the activity, their favorite is hands down web traffic, right? And the reason is simple. All of our networks, virtually all of our networks, even if we're using a proxy or whatever, have pretty much open exit doors, right? We know our users need to go out and access the web. So the bad guys go out and access it through the web. It's just simple logic, right? But again, we can use this to help us, right? Because at least, if nothing else, this narrows our scope, right? Because yes, we've still got a lot of web traffic to sort through, but at least if we're looking at the web traffic, that's less than looking at all of the traffic, right? And when you start looking and getting familiar with what your outbound web traffic looks like, there's going to be a crap load of it that you can just discount right out of hand, right? Now, you got to be careful here too, though, because the bad guys ain't stupid, right? So they're doing things like, they know we have things like, proxy blocking and acceptable sites and black hole lists and stuff like that, right? So what do they want to use for most of their command and control that this is talking out on the web to? Legitimate servers, right? So they are pretty good at hiding in it, but again, someplace we need to look. The Microsoft networking inside our environment, okay? Now, Microsoft networking as a protocol is used under the hood all over the place in Windows. But the bad guys use it differently, okay? Yes, it's still Microsoft networking, right? But if we go back, how many times have we got our users making all of these null sessions, pulling things like the domain users list, right? Pulling things like the PW dump. All of those things leave marks. So those are places we can start, right? We understand, okay, these are the tools the bad guys are using. Let's go look for signs of those tools in our environment. Oh, McAfee or Semantic popped up that PW dump was run, on this box yesterday, but it capped it. We're good. You probably better go look closer at that box, right? Because yeah, McAfee or Semantic and every other antivirus on the planet knows about that tool and sometimes stop them from running, but there was a reason it was run. It doesn't get run randomly, right? It has to be intent. That certainly probably warrants our attention, right? We've also got RDP. RDP is a great protocol. Is Bob in accounting really have a need to RDP to the domain controller? I don't know, maybe. Maybe in your environment he does. In my environment, Bob shouldn't be on the domain controller, right, with RDP. So again, understanding your network and really looking beyond just the surface. You can't find a snort signature that's going to fix that for you, right? Snort's great, not knocking snort here. I'm knocking our use of those tools, right? And I'm just as guilty as all the rest of us, right? This isn't Tim saying, all right, I get it all handled, but you guys need to work on it. That's not what this is. This is all of us working through it together, right? So the next thing is their mapping. So where do we look for their mapping? Well, the key is you gotta understand that Active Directory is a built-in map of your network, right? It's great because it's got all the user objects, all the computers, etc., and it's all accessible from the command line, right? And the bad guys know that, and they know how to use the command line to query that. I don't need to run nmap. I just run some Microsoft networking commands and I can get deeper, richer data without setting off your nmap 6, right? Just from your Active Directory or LDAP. Microsoft networking, again, we talked about that already, right? But the key here is under Microsoft networking, in terms of the hiding, again, look at it from the perspective that the bad guys use it differently than your normal users use it. So spend some time with a packet sniffer and understand how your normal users look at it. Push that aside a little bit, and some interesting things are going to be sitting there, right? Most of which probably are nothing, just oddities of, some app. But chances are really, really good that some of them aren't. And some of them are stuff that when you realize what it is that's been sitting there on your network all along, is cause to go get a fresh pair of pants. So
So, and of course, they need to find their data, right? So they need to map your network, they need to hide in your network, they need to find your data, right? So, multiple authentications are the key, right? So, when I'm a user and I log into the box, if I go look out at the Active Directory logs for that box, there's a particular event ID that's associated with me directly signing into the box. There's a completely different event ID that you will see in your logs if, say, I don't know, Sean logged into my box across the network. They're both login successes, but they have a different event ID. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think Sean should be logging into my box across the network. I know, Sean. I trust you, buddy. Right? But that, again, places for us to look, right? That's all I'm throwing out is some ideas here, right? And then, of course, they need to exfiltrate, right? So they found our data. Somehow they've got to move it out because it doesn't do any good sitting there. Now, there's a couple caveats here, right? So when we looked in those logs earlier and they were running that PW dump and all of that, right? They didn't actually have to exfiltrate that because they were dumping it to the screen, and of course they're seeing what's going to the screen. So essentially they exfiltrated it through their command and control channel. But the real data, the documents or whatever it is that they're looking, right? Your SQL database, your email, that's going to embarrass your company and stuff, they got to get that out somehow. So by and large, most of the groups that we see that are pervasive are using RAR. By no means is it the only thing to use. Obviously, lots of legitimate uses for RAR. I love RAR. I use it all the time myself. But when I make a RAR file, I don't name it .avi. Right? And there's all sorts of ways, whip up a little Perl script or something, for goodness sakes, to compare the magic 3 bytes at the beginning of the file with the file extension, right? Or if you run it in Case or one of these other forensics tools, or, Autopsy, right? Any of that stuff can do that for you, right? It can bring you up a list and say, all right, here's what the files say they are, here's what's really in them. And again, of course, that has false positives, right? This isn't a magic solution again, but it's some place to look, right? Because it's very unlikely that most of your users are renaming their RAR files, okay? And if they are, there might be another reason to investigate the employee, all right? Now, interestingly enough, on the topic of just kind of a little aside, one of the techniques that we've seen them do lately, which is to me always fascinating when I see them changing techniques, and they're using the Dropbox and Box.net stuff, right? So we've got all this cool cloud stuff now so that we can do, I love Dropbox. I use Dropbox like crazy, not for anything that I care about, but it's a really cool, useful thing, right? So Dropbox is what? Load out my firewall, drop it on Dropbox, go pick it up on Dropbox on my other computer. Instant exfiltration. Just something to think about. All right. And of course, ultimately, the other thing that they've got to do is they've got to maintain access, right? So chances are bad guys are getting in. If they go through all the effort of getting in, they want to make it easy on themselves, right? They're lazy, just like we are, right? It's a lot of work to get in that first time. Well, hopefully it was a lot of work. Regardless, it's a lot easier if I leave myself a back door to get in subsequent times. So again, they love remote access Trojans. So pay special attention in your antivirus for any remote access Trojan detects. If you see poison ivy popping up somewhere, it's time to go get a copy of the hard drive. Just a suggestion. Again, there's legitimate times people use this stuff, but I would suggest